The sun glinted off the towering glass skyscrapers of Silver Crest Towers, a symbol of opulence and untouchable power. Inside the penthouse of the Varnum Group, the elite white-collar executives prided themselves not just on wealth, but on dominance. Their suits were immaculate, stitched from Italian wool, cufflinks glinting like shards of polished diamonds. They moved with a calculated arrogance, their faces sharp, expressions cold, eyes scanning for any hint of imperfection among those beneath them. In the sprawling offices below, the black-collar staff toiled silently, their uniforms faded and practical, faces weary from endless hours of work, backs aching under fluorescent lights that never seemed to warm them. Every task, from organizing the executive schedules to cleaning the gleaming marble floors, was scrutinized with a merciless eye. The executives delighted in exerting their power over the workers, pushing deadlines to impossible limits, demanding perfection while offering nothing more than scorn and contempt. Whispered insults traveled down the hallways. "Do you even know what you're doing?" Or "Why are you so slow? Are you even capable?" The staff endured the verbal lashings, heads bowed, smiles forced, hearts pounding with silent humiliation. It was a theater of cruelty, and the executives played the lead roles with relish. At the center of it all was Victor Althorn, the CEO, a man whose wealth had aged him into a mask of icy perfection. His silver hair was slicked back, tailored navy suits always sharp, and his piercing blue eyes missed nothing. Victor took particular delight in belittling Selena, a young black waitress who served the executives in the corporate cafeteria, her uniform neat but humble, her movements precise. Every drop of coffee spilled, every delay in service, became a justification for humiliation. "Are you trying to ruin my day?" he sneered one morning, leaning over her tray with an imperious glare. Around him, the other executives laughed, a chorus of entitlement. The cafeteria, meant to be a place of respite, had become a stage for public degradation. Yet beneath Selena's calm demeanor, a storm of quiet determination brewed. Each insult, each slight, etched itself into her memory like fuel. She observed every gesture, every arrogance-laden word, storing them not as defeat but as ammunition. And while the executives believed their wealth granted them invincibility, they remained blind to the humanity beneath the uniforms, the strength simmering silently, waiting for the moment the scales could be reversed. In the elevators and hallways, the staff exchanged fleeting glances of shared understanding, their eyes communicating what words could not, a promise that endurance could one day turn into justice. Victor and his coterie of white-collar executives thrived on spectacle. It was no longer enough to micromanage or correct errors. The power games escalated into psychological warfare. In the boardroom, they mocked the maintenance team, men and women whose skin bore the marks of labor. Their hands were rough from scrubbing floors, carrying heavy loads, or adjusting machinery with precision that often went unacknowledged. The executives would orchestrate these moments with meticulous cruelty. "Did you really think you were invited here?" Victor jeered during a quarterly meeting, spotlighting a technician named Marcus, whose nerves betrayed the anxiety he felt under such scrutiny. Laughter erupted around the table as Victor deliberately mispronounced his name, each syllable a calculated sting. Outside, the black-collar staff endured relentless demands. Endless forms to fill, inspections that demanded impossible precision, and orders delivered with a venomous sharpness that left no room for error. In the cafeteria, Selena was forced to serve plates with deliberate slowness, her every movement monitored for perceived inadequacy. She was called clumsy, lazy, incompetent, labels that the executives hurled like daggers. "You think you're smart?" one executive asked, smirking as if daring her to reply. "This is why no one takes you seriously." Yet the humiliation extended beyond words. Employees were made to clean floors during peak hours, endure the laughter of their superiors while fetching coffee, or perform menial tasks under the guise of team-building exercises designed to demean. The difference between the two groups was clear. The white-collar executives sat comfortably in fancy chairs, their shoes shiny, tapping impatiently on the floor. Their computer screens showed stock charts, emails, and pictures of vacations. They seemed completely in their own world, thinking they were more important than anyone else. Below them, the workers were busy cleaning floors, carrying trays, and doing other hard tasks. Every mistake, even the smallest one, was noticed and criticized, making the workers feel unimportant and powerless. Day after day, it seemed like no matter how hard they worked, their effort went unnoticed. But even in this harsh environment, something quietly began to grow. Behind closed doors, In whispered conversations during short breaks, Selena and the other workers started talking. They shared their struggles, their dreams, and the unfair treatment they faced. They realized they weren't alone. Marcus, a skilled technician with rough hands and a clever mind, started sketching ideas in his notebook. These weren't just for fixing machines. They were small plans to quietly challenge the executives. Every insult and dismissive look from the bosses became a reminder of what they could do, and the workers started thinking carefully about how to act. Slowly, a plan was forming, like threads weaving into a bigger picture. The executives, however, didn't notice. They were too busy with their own work, too proud to see what was happening around them. They believed they were untouchable, unaware that the workers they looked down on were quietly preparing to change things. The workers' anger and hope were growing together. Each day, each shared story, each small act of resistance brought them closer. The bosses felt safe, confident in their power, but behind the scenes, a quiet storm was building. One that would be hard for them to ignore when it finally arrived. The pivotal moment arrived not with violence but with a quiet, simmering audacity that demanded attention. It was late Friday afternoon, and the boardroom of Silvercrest Towers buzzed with the usual hum of complacency. Victor Althorn sat at the head of the long polished table. His silver hair slicked perfectly back, a navy suit sharp enough to cut glass. His piercing blue eyes scanning the room with the calm arrogance of a man convinced of his own untouchability. Surrounding him were his white-collar executives, each one a mirror of affluence and entitlement. Women in silk blouses and pencil skirts, men in tailored suits with designer watches glinting under the fluorescent lights. Laughter rang through the room as they congratulated themselves on another profitable quarter, oblivious to the lives their power had quietly shaped below. Outside, the elevators carried the black-collar staff, their uniforms practical, their hands rough from hours of labor, their movements careful but precise. Among them, Selena moved with a controlled grace, balancing a tray laden with coffee and pastries, her eyes flicking toward the boardroom door. There was a weight in her chest. Not fear, but resolve. Every insult, every public humiliation she had endured, every dismissive glare and cruel word, had coalesced into a quiet but unstoppable determination. Victor noticed her entering and smirked, leaning back in his leather chair, the picture of arrogance. "Talk to my deaf daughter," he bellowed, referencing a cruel mocking joke he had made weeks earlier at the expense of a staff member's child. Laughter erupted around the room, a chorus of entitlement, echoing off the glass walls. But Selena did not flinch. Her movements slowed as she approached the table, deliberately measured, as if carrying not coffee but a storm in her hands. She paused at the edge of the boardroom, eyes meeting Victor's with unflinching calm, and then, in a voice that was steady and clear, she began to speak. Each word was chosen with precision. Each sentence a mirror held up to the executive's cruelty. She recounted every humiliation she and her colleagues had endured, the public mockery in the cafeteria, the impossible deadlines imposed on the janitorial team, the subtle, constant reminders that their labor was invisible, their dignity negligible. She named each person affected, describing not just their suffering but their skill, their intelligence, and their humanity. Marcus, the technician, who had quietly fixed complex machinery while enduring endless ridicule, was not invisible. The cafeteria staff, whose work fed hundreds each day with painstaking care, was not invisible. Each tale was a spotlight, illuminating the harsh reality the executives had chosen to ignore. The room went silent. Phones lowered. Lips which had been curled in smug amusement seconds before, now pressed into thin lines of disbelief. The laughter that had once echoed so confidently died, replaced by a suffocating tension. The executives, so accustomed to control and dominance, suddenly found themselves confronted by an undeniable truth. Their authority had been wielded cruelly, their privilege unchecked, their perception of power a fragile illusion. Victor's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion, then an unspoken shame. For the first time, he was faced with the consequences of his arrogance, the tangible impact of every dismissive word and scornful glance. The employees, once silent and invisible, were no longer shadows in the corner of the corporate empire. They were fully present, articulate, and undeniable. Selena did not raise her voice in anger. Instead, she spoke with the authority of someone who had observed, endured, and finally chosen to act. She detailed the strategic ways the staff had compensated for the executive's negligence. Marcus's clever adjustments that prevented costly breakdowns, the meticulous care of the cafeteria staff that kept the office functioning seamlessly, the unspoken solidarity among the janitors and clerks that had quietly resisted every attempt to demean them. Every example was a testament not to defiance, but to resilience, to intelligence, and to the quiet dignity that the white-collar elite had never valued. The executives were forced to listen, their usual dominance dissolved by the undeniable truth that the real work, the work that made their empire function, was done by those they had mocked and dismissed. The boardroom fell silent as Selena spoke, unwavering, exposing years of abuse. Victor's authority wavered. The executives were forced to confront their arrogance. In the following weeks, respect replaced scorn. Selena and the staff proved that courage and perseverance could overturn even the strongest power, and the unseen were finally heard.